So what's the sitch? Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy here in spring break 2013, and I thought to myself, what better way to kickstart my spring break than to talk about a TV show that I recently started watching again from my childhood, and that TV show is Kim Possible. And I gotta say, after rewatching the entire series last weekend, I gotta say this show still holds up. It is still as charming, still as hilarious, and still as fun to watch as it was when it ended 5 years ago. Now the story of Kim Possible follows this basic average girl who is here to save the world, and you can't stop her cause she's Kim Possible. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I had to do it. But yeah, it basically follows this teenage girl who tries to balance saving the world from these criminal masterminds and maintaining a social life in high school, along with her partner in crime and then future boyfriend Ron Stoppable and his partner in crime Rufus, as they take on baddies and, like I said, balance a social life. Now, I don't really recall what my initial reaction was to this show because it came out 10 years ago. I'm getting old. Nah, I'm not getting old. I'm still young as ever. But I do remember that it was one of my favorite Disney shows when I was growing up. I watched it all the time. I couldn't get enough of the adventures of Kim and Ron, what they're gonna do, how they're gonna beat Draken and Shigo or Monkey Fist. Now you're all probably wondering why the sudden interest in Kim Possible again. And that's because I'm taking this class called the History of Animated Films, and one of the assignments that we had recently asked us what our favorite cartoon shows were growing up. And no, it wasn't Kim Possible that I chose. That honor goes to the one and only Ed, Edd n Eddy. I love that show. I'll probably do a review of that show later. But after seeing one episode of Ed, Edd n Eddy, it just got me interested to go see the old shows that I watched as a kid and see if they still hold up, and most of them still do. I found an episode of Kim Possible and I clicked it and I was like, oh my god, I still love this show. I gotta watch this show. And so I found the channel that had all 86 episodes and I just marathoned through that shit. And I gotta say, it brought smiles to my face. It was so good to see the old gang back together again. Now, putting my nostalgia aside, let's talk about the aspects that are really good about this show. First off, the characters. They are so entertaining. Kim Possible, Ron Stoppable, Draken, Shigo, the list can go on. I really like Kim Possible. She's just a really cheerful girl, and yes, she's a cheerleader, but she's not a bitch about it. I mean, they really do a good job to make her likable. They easily could have made her arrogant, and she flaunts the fact that she's a cheerleader and she saves the world on a daily basis and she dates the hottest guy in the school. But no, they make her likable. They make her relatable. And I really liked her bond with Ron. And speaking of Ron, let's talk about Ron. Till this day, Ron is still the most entertaining and most relatable character in the whole Kim Possible franchise. As a 19-year-old kid, I still relate to the situations that Ron goes through or has gone through. I really enjoy him. He's always optimistic, always positive, always exciting, always erratic. I love his character and I relate to him a lot because he was kind of like the guy that I was in high school. I was always that weird goofy guy that did the weird goofy things and said the weird goofy stuff, and I really relate and like his character. Another great thing about Kim Possible is the fact that they actually took some of the villains and developed them so well to the point where you actually like them a lot. Take Draken and Shigo for instance. Now Shigo can get a little unlikable at times because out of all the villains in Kim Possible, she's the only one that actually acts like a villain. But even when she's acting like a villain, I can't help but like her. There's just something about her. She has the flair that makes her really stand out from the crowd, and you can't help but love her. And she would always have these sarcastic comebacks to say whenever she's like fighting Kim, or when she's talking to Dr. Draken about his next evil plan and how it's stupid and stuff. I really dug her chemistry with Dr. Draken, and you can't help but fall in love with Dr. Draken. Even though he's a failure as a villain, it's his failure as a villain that makes him a likable character, and you just want to see how is he gonna fail this week. It's just, he's a fun character. There are a lot of fun characters in this show. I absolutely love the fact that they lampoon the whole spy espionage genre, and they hit it to a T. They hit it right on the nail. Every trope, every cliche that you can ever think of in a spy espionage film, TV show, they make fun of in here. In fact, there's a lot of scenes where Draken's like, I'm gonna take over the world, and it's like, haven't we talked about this before? And you do know you're just gonna fail. Or there'll be times where Kim comes out of nowhere, Draken's like, Kim Possible, and Monkey Fist said to him once, like, why do you always act surprised? I mean, it's not like you don't expect her not to come. And he's like, you know what, you make a valid point. And I really dug how they balanced the genre of spy espionage with high school comedy. It was so perfect. And I felt like neither of them overpowered each other. It was just well balanced. And the last thing that I really liked about this series, although in the last season it got a bit too much and I felt like they executed a bit poorly, was the relationship, development, and romance between Ron and Kim. Their relationship was the backbone of this series. You really felt like these two have been friends for a very long time. They really worked well together and they really needed each other. There were some episodes where Kim went on a mission, but it didn't feel the same when Ron wasn't there. And there would be times where Ron goes out by himself and it wouldn't feel the same because Kim wasn't there. So they really complement each other and they really need each other. And when they became a couple, I can't tell you how happy I was. I just had a big smile on my face. I even saw the movie when it first came out and I was just waiting for that moment where they actually end up to be a couple. Although the execution leading up to them being a couple, I felt could have been handled a little better, but the fact that they ended up as a couple negated the execution that led up to them becoming a couple, and that's all I really wanted to see. I just wanted to see them end up together, and I got what I wanted, and they are such a great couple. Now, as much as I really love this show and it took me down nostalgia lane, I got a big old smile on my face, there was a couple of things I noticed after watching it again that I had a few problems with. The biggest problem that this show suffered from, just like all the other Disney shows past, present, and future, is that the show tries so hard, so obviously to try to be hip and fresh that they just come off being cheesy and corny. I know that it takes place in a high school setting and I know that they're aiming for a teenage demographic, so in order to relate to the kids they try to use the lingo that they used back at that time. But the thing is, it doesn't feel natural. It felt very forced. Like there'll be episodes where Kim is talking to Bonnie and she'll say to Bonnie, "That's so not the issue right now. That's so not the drama." It didn't feel natural. It really felt scripted, like a bunch of writers came together and was like, how do we relate to the teenage demographic? Oh, okay, let's have them say so a lot and say like and throw in some biggity boos and yodity yos. That's how it really felt. And I was like, okay, I could let that go because they're trying to relate to the teenagers. But when the villains start saying yo and diggity dog and try to relate to the teenage demographic by being rappers and having clothing lines, it felt even more forced. I was just like, really? Stop, you're embarrassing me. You're embarrassing yourself. The show at some points can be a bit repetitive, but I think that's the entire point of the show, where the villains do the same old and then Kim comes and stops them. And that's the main problem about being meta. They think that because they're self-aware that they are being repetitive, that we can give them a freebie and a pass, that, oh, they know that we're being, meta and that we're doing the same things over and over again. But just because we know that you're self-aware that you're being repetitive doesn't mean that you're allowed to be repetitive. You can be original and we'll be like, oh, okay, well, at least they're trying something new. And I guess the last real problem, this is more pertaining to the last season, is that the relationship between Ron and Kim when they became a couple felt really forced. And there will be moments too where I even forget that they're a couple because they don't even act like a couple. There'll be episodes where they really force on the fact that they're a couple, and then there'll be episodes where they just feel like they're friends again, and you're like, are they a couple? Are you sure? Because they just look like they're buddies. And I guess you can make the argument that since they've been friends for so long, that's why they act the way they did, even though they're dating. But even when they did the whole kissy goo goo stuff, it just felt really forced. And I was like, just go back to acting like friends. I mean, I know you're a couple. You don't have to hammer the fact that you guys are a couple. And like I said, it just felt really forced. But overall, Kim Possible still holds up to today's standards. It's still a wacky, fun, adventurous show that I remember as a kid. And if they were to show this show again on TV, I think kids would like it. New generation, old generation alike can come together and watch Kim Possible, and I'm gonna give this show a 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely think that it's worth watching. I'll post a link to a channel that has the entire series so you can go watch it for yourself. For those of you who grew up with Kim Possible, welcome back to Nostalgia Lane. And for those of you who are new to Kim Possible, give it a watch. I think you might be thoroughly surprised. But anyway, what did you guys think of the show? Did you like it a lot? Did you find it dull and interesting? You couldn't get into it? And for those of you who grew up on Kim Possible, does it still hold up today? And let me know, what is your favorite Kim Possible episode and character? My favorite episodes are called Bad Boy, where Ron turns into a villain, and the one where Kim and She'll get like modulators on their necks. Those were so fun to watch. Comment below, let me know. Anyway, if you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button and welcome to the Black Critic Guy. Like this video if you really enjoyed it, if you love going down nostalgia lane. I'm Tony Wally II from the Black Critic Guy. Until then, peace YouTube.